right. Hey, we are live on Facebook. I'm Chris, Infinite Realities, and I am here with the awesome and really infinitely cooler than I'll ever hope to be, Bridgit.
Yeah, right.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You know what? Trying to adjust
Hanging
to
in
new
there.
reality that is life in pandemic.
Yep. Weird, man.
It
So
is
weird.
weird. I've been saying it turns out the apocalypse is a lot more boring than I thought it would be.
It's the most boring apocalypse ever.
Yeah, like I thought there'd be like cool gas masks. Nah, it's
Yeah.
just medical masks.
Yeah.
Not being
Kind of boring.
Well, how have you been doing through all this? Are you still able to work on anything? Do you have what are you doing?
Just kind of stuff here and there. Doing like some spot illustrations and commissions and stuff like that right now. I know a lot of artists have gotten the pencils down order. So dealing with that.
Have you gotten the pencils down?
Yeah. I think everybody pretty much kind of has. So
And what were you working on when you got that notification when you were doing the help?
Lady Baltimore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Things are looking up and you just kind of manage. I know a lot of people are kind of struggling right now and you just kind of work with what you got and do stuff that makes you happy. Right now I'm putting together a bunch of like collabs with some artists.
Oh, sweet.
Some artists have agreed to it. Some artists I'm kind of like putting some stuff together and like sending, hoping maybe they'd be down for doing something. So
the worst anybody can say is no, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah. So just a bunch of fun stuff right now. Try to keep it light and all that.
So I've been following you and your career for years now, and I first started seeing you at Heroes Con every year in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And what's been neat about that is every year when I go by your table, your presence gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that has been, as someone who loves comics and loves independent creators, one of the joys is just seeing your career blow up and your fan base blow up along with it. How was that on your end? What is that like?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think Heroes is like my home con. So I think, and plus I used to work at the store. So I think a lot of people, I still know a lot of people that used to shop at Heroes are hard to find. And they always come by and check out. I know Joe Roush always stops by to say hey. And Heroes is like my home con. If I go to a different convention, it's kind of, it's starting from scratch, but Heroes is always super fun.
Yeah, Heroes Con, for those who haven't been, it's one of my favorite conventions. It's pure comic convention. There's no media guests. There's nothing like that. It's 3 days of just for people who love comics by people who love comics. And again, like you get to discover new creators. That's how I discovered your work. So
yeah, and the thing is like traveling around to different cons and like going to California and New York and all that stuff like that, you realize how rare it is to have like just a pure comics con, because everything's usually mixed up and they're trying to incorporate a whole lot of different types of media. But Heroes Con is pretty pure in the fact that it's just comics. So it's kind of nice.
Well, tell me about your journey into comic books. You mentioned that you worked in a comic shop. Did you always want to make comics, or did that come later? Tell me about that.
So I've always, since I was a kid, been drawing and all that. And I was a customer at Heroes for a long time before I actually started working there. Because I used to live like down the street, and they used to call me Bike Girl. Apparently, they told me this after I started working there, because I always used to ride my bike and park it outside, so they call me Bike Girl. And but I ride my bike up there, and but I went to college for illustration, and I've always been like really focused on art and drawing in general. I tell people like I don't know a whole lot, but I do at least know comics a little bit,
Yep.
But it's always just felt like, I don't know, like in college they try to steer you away from comics, you know, in high school and college. I just try to steer you away, but I always like the format of the storytelling, because anytime I would do like a single piece of work, especially in high school, I would always have like this gigantic story behind it, and the teacher would be like, "This is critique. This is not like diving into the storyline." But so I realized I wanted to draw like, you know, like I love in movies, like, you know, if an actor or actress makes an expression that I think is interesting or like super like natural, I'll try to study like what that character's feeling. So I like to portray like the emotional level of the the characters throughout. So I always just found comics, the storytelling like essence of it, to be the thing I like most about art in general, is just showing the progression and the journey of the storyline with all the characters and stuff.
Was there a comic that first captured your imagination? Because a lot of people, they're aware of comics, but a lot of folks have that, like, and that's the one that got me.
Yeah.
Similar? What is yours?
Yeah, mine is Gen X.
Nice.
With Chris Bachalo. His artwork was just so good. That was really the first comic back in the 90s I started reading. I had read some like X-Men, and then like some of the first Buffy comics. But Gen X was the one where I was like, ooh, like his art, I love Chris Bachalo's art style so much, you know? And there was a character named Penance that I really like identified with in the story. And so ever since then, I've just been like a super fan. But
well, and Penance's visual was so striking.
It was so good. That first panel of her with the butterfly. Oh my God. And she like didn't talk and nobody could understand like what her deal was. I loved her. And then it got super confusing with Monet and all that.
It did get super confusing, but what's crazy is Bachalo's art was there. Like, it didn't matter how crazy it got.
Yeah.
He was the perfect artist for that book.
Yeah, he really was. I hadn't seen anything like it, you know?
So I'm assuming he was one of the influences for you?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Any others? Any other artists when you were making that jump into comics that stood out for you?
When I was reading it, I guess in high school, I wasn't as like, I didn't pay attention as much to the like artist or writer. I loved like the X-Men and like so I'm sure like I think I read like a bunch of Chris Claremont and all that. But yeah, I love the X-Men. Now there are artists definitely that I pay more attention to, but I was such a fangirl with like the stories of all the characters. I love Nightcrawler, you know, so I was really like character attached. So
were you working at the comic shop at Heroes when you started making comics? Because I know Heroes is famous for producing comic creators.
Yeah, like Matt Fraction and Dustin Harvin. I was doing comics in college beforehand, and I was tabling. I started tabling at Heroes Con, but yeah, I was tabling at Heroes Con before I worked there. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
So, what was your first comic that you produced?
It was this penciled comic that I called Kindle, and it was unfortunate because it was like right when the Kindle came out. Not that it was gonna like blow up or anything, but it was right in college. Like I had done comics in like elementary school and stuff like that. But this was the first one that I like really like I self-published and everything like that. But it was Kindle, and it was a fantasy type D&D type story. About like this hobgoblin guy, and I think I printed probably like 200 of them or something. Wow. But it was this kind of thing where like, you know, you're working a job and then, you know, you save up enough money to print it, and then all the money that you get from selling it, you know, put back into printing it. So it was just kind of like a labor of love type thing. But it was a terrible idea because it was all pencil. So it was like all like super detailed pencil drawing.
For making comics.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't make that transition from talking about making a comic to making a comic. So
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
So I really enjoy Brother Nash, and
Nice.
the conceit is fantastic. It's supernatural trucker.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Oh man, I wish I could tell you. So I think the primary reason was, so this is kind of like what I did in college. Like, I wanted to create a story, or I wanted to draw a comic, but nobody around me was writing. So I did the writing too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think the primary thing was it was going to be one issue, and it was just because I couldn't draw trucks. And I wanted to try to get better at drawing like semi trucks and stuff, and like motorcycles and stuff. And then I also love, like, I'm just like a huge folklore nerd, so diving into all that, like folklore, like Native American folklore, Aesop's fables, that type of stuff, like anything where like the animal represents like a concept greater. I don't know. But kind of that got wrapped into it, and then yeah, I don't know. The characters came first, and then the trucks came first. The characters came second, and then all the folklore and stuff just got thrown in. But and then so I did the first issue, and then after that came out, I came up with like 4 or 5 more issues after that, and I was just like, I'm gonna do a whole series. So
Besides wanting to get better at drawing trucks,
yeah.
And obviously folklore, were there other, because again it's a horror bent to it, were there works that came before, like I'm thinking like Bernie Wrightson and stuff like that influenced it, or
Bernie Wrightson is awesome. Like, he's definitely somebody who I've read a lot of. I think the main thing for me is like, so like literally I'm a huge Mike Mignola fan. And so like BPRD, Hellboy, like all that stuff is like, so it went from X-Men to like anything Mignolaverse. And like actually like me and my husband met over like Mignolaverse stuff. Like,
kidding.
yeah, and so like we're just huge fans anyway, so it's weird that I'm working on the comic, but he's a huge influence too. But also like literature as well. Like I'm really big into like old collections of folklore, and especially like werewolf mythos. Like, I love anything werewolves. Like, I just think they're fascinating. Like the whole meaning, like man versus beast, like balancing that inside you and stuff like that. So that kind of stuff, that kind of nerdy stuff is what I really dig. So
weird question. So you seem very well read on all things folklore and werewolf. Everybody's familiar with Full Moon, Silver Bullet. What is something that people might not be familiar with about werewolf folklore?
I don't know. Like, there's a lot of different, like, there's the skinwalkers who, you know, don the
Which is terrifying
cloaks.
to me.
Say it again?
Skinwalkers are terrifying to me.
Yeah. There's like a whole lot of weird, like, different types of, and they're all in different cultures. Like, I actually was watching something about like were hyenas and were jaguars like this morning, because it's just like they're in every culture, you know. And then there's several different ways that they come about. Like, some's a ritual, you know, like sometimes it's a wolf that can turn into a man and masquerade around. So it's just like there's a lot of different types of werewolves that are collected. There's a really cool collection by Sabine Gould, I think, that's like literally werewolves in folklore, I think, is like the title, and it's like a whole collection of just really weird stories.
Yeah.
That might be true, might not. But
don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
You mentioned the Mignola verse, which is interesting because you read those first few volumes of Hellboy, and it's pretty straightforward, but you hit a point where Mike Mignola clearly has more of an interest exploring folklore.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Than he does just Hellboy punching Nazis.
Yeah. Yeah, like the whole mermaids and like he goes
Bobby
to Africa.
To it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then you got the luchadors, the vampire, like just a lot of stuff.
So is that what drew you to it? Was just that deep dive into the deep cuts of folklore?
I love folklore and stuff like it, but the thing that really drew me to it I mean, that aspect of it is amazing, but also like the quiet horror, like you don't really see it nowadays. Like it, like the solid blacks and just separating characters out and like the emotion in the space, you know what I mean, like around the character is really interesting. And like he really captures like those old horror movies, like they're just so quiet sometimes, like you don't really see that. Now everything is like action, you know, like punching, and there is that, but there's like, what is it, the Wolves of St. August or something, where they go exploring in the old abandoned like castle or like manor, and she gets left alone like in the dark, and I don't know, there's just something about like how he handles horror in a really quiet way sometimes, in a really spooky way.
No, definitely the McNillaverse leaves a lot. It's that very Lovecraftian where there's something under the surface of it.
Yeah.
That was bothers. So, well, you're up until the recently with COVID, you were working in that universe.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you tell
It's
me how that came
exciting.
to be about? Did you approach or were you approached?
So, like, actually talking about Kindle, like my first comic, like Mike bought that comic. Like I met
Yeah.
him like 8 or 9 years ago or something like that at a Heroes Con, and like my friends Steve Saffel and Seth Piegler, they ended up introducing us, and he Seth was like, yeah, she does comics. And I'm like, please don't tell him that because I don't want him to look at it. But he picked up Kindle and was like asking me all this stuff about it. And I'm like, why are you asking me questions? Like, I should be asking you stuff. But he like picked it up, and then he's been like really cool ever since. And he's just been like, hey, if you ever have any questions, and just a really cool person. And then like, recently, so I did like a card game recently, Drinks and Daggers, and after that it was kind of like one of those freelance open spaces where you're just like, I have nothing, I might have to get a job at Walmart, you know. And I remember I was actually like I was kind of like rock bottom a little bit, because I was like, I'm gonna have to go get a job. And then like I was at that moment, I was chasing a squirrel out of our attic. I was like, get out of here! Like,
As one does.
yeah, and I look like a crazy person probably, but I remember getting a message on my phone, and it was like from Dark Horse. I'm like, who's trying to pretend like they're Dark Horse trying to contact me? And I was like, who's this spam right now trying to get a hold of me, pretending to be Dark Horse? But yeah, it was like Katie O'Brien, from one of the editors. She was like, you know, Mike really wants you on this project, and I was like,
It's awesome.
yeah.
So did you fangirl out for a minute, or were you able to continue?
I have to say, I've never hyperventilated before, but I did then. I literally did. I called Justin scream crying. He was like, are you okay? I was like, I'm fine. Let me call you back because I need to get over this for a second. But yeah, it was cool.
Understandable, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how was the project settled on? I mean, was it did you have to, did they want you to pitch an idea, or did they come to you with the concept?
Oh, they came to me with the concept for sure. Yeah, they came to me with Lady Baltimore, and everything was like, if you say yes, we're gonna go. You know, let's do it. So everything was like all set and stuff, and it's been really cool, like working with Chris and Mike, and like kind of you know, creating the new characters and putting some old ones in there and stuff like that. So
what is the conceit behind the series?
The concept is just that, like, Sophia, who is in the previous Baltimore books, like had married Lord Baltimore, and now that he's gone, she has his estate and everything. So she is Lady Baltimore. And so she's, now that the vampires have kind of like faded out a little bit, she is now hunting all the witches that are still around, summoning stuff. So there's still a lot of like evil in the world that she's got to take care of. And there's a couple really cool new characters. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say, but there's some really cool new characters in here. She's kind of got her own posse going on, like Lord Baltimore had his. So, but she's always been a really resourceful character. And now that she has like all of his stuff and like his manor and like all of his resources, she's out ready to kick some butt. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a a dream to work in that universe. Have there been any challenges working in that world?
Not really. Not challenges in a bad way. More like challenges in trying to like tackle concepts in a way that I want to like honor the previous story and the previous artwork with Peter Bergting and Ben Stenbeck. Like their stories are amazing, and so I definitely don't want to veer away from that. I definitely want to make it feel like a Mignola book, and carry on the art of the previous artist and not fail miserably. But I'm so excited about this project. It's been a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. So, are there? You're working with Christopher Golden, and he wasn't able to join us today, so I'm gonna have to harass him down the road. As a collaborator, how's that working out? He's not here, so you can,
so you can she can spill the tea if you need to. No, he's really fun. I've talked most to Chris Golden. Mike approves a lot of the monster designs and like overall story, and Chris will work out the small details with me, like one-on-one. He's really cool. He's like, if you ever have any questions, like he'll answer me in like 5 minutes. Like even if I have like a stupid question, like what's this girl's hair look like? So he's really funny too. But he'll leave me like notes in the script, and it's really funny because I have an automatic reader. Like while I'm working, it'll read the script to me. It'll read it out loud in that techno voice. Like, don't give me crap about this. So the reader will read it like, don't give me crap about this. But he's a lot of fun.
Robot voice.
Yeah. But it's cool. We'll like Skype and talk deets. But it's been interesting working with Mike on the monster designs. I think they released a couple images of the harpies because there's some harpies in issue 1 and 2 that were really fun to work on. They're not your normal harpies like most Mignola stuff. It's a little different, but
I'm excited about this. Now you've also done cover work too, in addition to sequential storytelling.
I've done a little cover work. The cover artist on this series is Abigail Larson, and she's awesome. She's adding a really cool flair to the story, I feel like.
Well, is there anything that you've been reading recently that you would recommend to people? Anything that's been like really getting your juices flowing?
I haven't really been reading I've been reading more like books. I haven't really been reading like comics as much. It's been like crazy with the deadlines for this story, but I have a pile waiting for me. One I would recommend is I'm about 2 novels behind, but Manifest Destiny from I think Skybound.
Yeah,
it's
good.
Matt Roberts does it. He's awesome. He's a great artist. But that's one I've been reading, and man, I think that's it for right now.
Do you have anything on the horizon? Any plans after you wrap up Lady Baltimore?
I think I'm just gonna kind of work on finishing this and see what happens, I guess. I'm not sure if it's going to be a one-off series, but we'll see. But I'm trying not to get too ahead of myself on planning future projects right now.
Sure. Well, what can people do to support you right now? I know some artists have Patreon. Some artists are, offering up commissions. Is there anything that people can do to support a creator like yourself in what I can only call the weirdness that we're going?
I know, it's so weird right now. Nothing really. I guess I'm taking commissions. If you want to shoot me an email, I'm kind of being picky and choosy because, like with this whole thing, I'm not sure when things are going to open up again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't want to take on too much and then owe people stuff and then have to work on the rest of the issues because I'm in the middle of, literally the middle of the series. So, but you can, I guess, just follow my Instagram and Twitter. I'm always throwing new sketches and stuff up there.
Which, by the way, I think I told you in the email when I contacted you, a mainstay of my refrigerator for probably 9 years now has been a print that you had of Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
When he and Dee were on steroids, and it's him eating the hot dog fully loaded.
Yeah, I love that episode so much.
You have a whole line of It's Always Sunny prints that I'm a huge fan of. Are those still available, or
say it again?
Are those still available? Do you have any of those?
I don't think they're available right now. I sold out and I never printed anymore, but
like I said, every morning when I go to the refrigerator to get the cream for my coffee, understand I start my day with Bridgit Connell artworks.
Nice. Oh, well, thanks, man. You started with Bridgit Connell artwork and a little bit of Charlie sass.
Charlie. Listen, Bridgit, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Blast. And whatever we can do for you to support you, I hope you never hesitate to reach out.
Oh, thanks so much, Chris. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.